Today, we're setting up sag. Today, we're setting up sag. Hey guys, this is Ryan from Fluid Focus. Just here to do a sag video for you guys. I know there's a lot out there already. We still get tons of people who don't know how to set sag, measure sag. It's valuable information for you to know and also for us to know your measurements and numbers when you send your suspension in for service or tunings. If you have a fully suspended mountain bike, setting sag is the first thing you should do before even thinking about going for a ride. Setting sag is a great starting point, but by no means is it set in stone. You can always deviate from your numbers, but at least you have a great base to go back to if something doesn't work out with your new settings. Setting up your bike is important so your wheels can track the ground. The wheels need to fall into holes, ruts, etc. Think about a trophy truck mobbing through a set of whoops. The wheels are dropping, tracking, they're everywhere, but the chassis of that truck is dead straight and it's not moving. Ideally, we get your mountain bike to do that as well. We need your wheels to fall into the holes, fall into the ruts. We need your bike to not deflect or your body to deflect. The starting point of all this is setting sag, and this will help your bike achieve its most potential. Number two question that we typically get is, how do I set my sag? What sag should I be running? There are a lot of complexities that do go into sag with so many different suspension designs, frame manufacturers. Generally on a fork, you're pretty okay with 15 to 20% sag. On a shock, depending on what kind of bike you are riding and how much travel you have, 30 to about 20 is generally good enough. But we always refer you to check with the manufacturer's specs and go off of their recommendation for your initial baseline. So how do you set sag? Well, ideally you have somebody else helping you. If not, prop yourself up against the wall with the handlebar or tool bench or whatever you have. But ideally you open all your adjusters, compression fully open, rebound fully fast. That way they're not hindering any of your measurements. Hop on the bike, hands off the brakes, feet on the pedals. Give the bike a couple good bounces to free the suspension of its stiction, wipers and O-ring stiction. Once you come to a rest, then move your sag O-ring down to the wiper or up to the wiper if it's a shock. If you have a coil shock, you can use the bump stop, push the bump stop up to the seal head or the wiper, and gently dismount the bike without compressing the suspension. You do need to know some basic data. You need to know the stroke for your fork and your shock. Fork's pretty easy, it's just the amount of travel you have on your fork. Shock's a little bit more difficult because the actual amount of travel you have factors into linkage, but you just need to know the stroke of your shock. The two biggest players out there, Fox and RockShox, make it pretty easy for you to do that. RockShox actually prints it on the shock for you. Fox gives you a rad little tune code. You can plug it in their website and it gives you all the data. Fork, I assume most people don't have a caliper. Grab a ruler and just measure your fork. Or plug in your tune code to the Fox website. It'll give you the all your info there. It'll give you the stroke, give you all the stock specs of your fork. RockShox just prints it on the back of the fork for you. So super easy to do. Just measuring your shock, shock tube, shock body, will give you a false reading. A lot of these shocks have spacers inside the shock that reduce the amount of travel they get. So you really need to get your owner's manual, look up the shock dimensions, plug the tune code into the Fox website, or simply just read what you have on the back of a RockShox. Or, Push just does it for you. They'll ship you a shock with preload set, ready for you to ride. Done deal.
There you go.
One way to measure is with calipers. On this 55 mil stroke shock, we're looking for about 16 and a half, anywhere from 16 to 17. So 16.4, call that good. If you don't have calipers, you can use a ruler, preferably in millimeters. We're looking on this example for about 16 and a half, so 16 to 17. If you're higher, you don't have enough pressure, so add some pressure. If you're too low, then take out some air pressure. All right, so if you're measuring with calipers, 160 mil fork, we're looking for about 32 millimeters. This one, call it good, 31 and change. Definitely don't chase it if you're pretty close. And then if you're doing ruler, make sure you get something with millimeters, makes your life a lot easier, and measure as such. And again, if not enough pressure, if your O-ring's too high, add pressure. If your O-ring is too low, decrease pressure. Here's an example for you. So on a 55 millimeter shock stroke, and you want 30% sag. So you take your shock stroke, 55 millimeters, multiply it by your desired sag. So in this case, we'll use 30%. That equals 16.5 millimeters. Don't chase the half a millimeter. If you got 16, you get 17, that's totally fine. And an example for a fork, you have a 160 millimeter travel fork, and you're trying to achieve 20% sag. You take your stroke, 160 millimeters, multiply it by your desired sag, so in this case 20%, that nets you 32 millimeters of sag. So that's essentially 32 millimeters from your sag O-ring to your wiper. In conclusion, setting up sag is the first step in setting up your bike for your body weight. These sag numbers are important to us as well when you send your suspension in for service or tuning. Knowing your sag numbers will help us deliver you the best product possible and tailor it to your needs. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. We just got this channel rolling. There'll be plenty more videos coming up. If there's something you'd like to see, please comment below and we'll get to those comments and we'll read all of them.